Welcome back to the Direct Response Podcast. I'm your host, Travis Ketchum, founder of Campaign Refinery, joined today, as always, by David Cartolano from Wealthy Inbox. Hey, man.
Hey, what's up, Travis?
Hey, so, I want to put a big disclaimer here right on the 10 on this bad boy. We are not lawyers, so the thing we're about to cover is more generalized advice from what we understand and what we've been told by people who are actually accredited to weigh in on this. I wish we had a lawyer here with us on today's episode, but they would have to talk to a lawyer for however long. So, you win some, you lose some. So today's topic is all about GDPR, which is the European law about data regulation, and effectively the thing that broke the internet and makes you see those pop-ups everywhere that says, do you accept the cookies? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
And David, I'm a cookie hound myself, but I hate the pop-ups.
Look, you're gonna get them, and you're gonna see. I think you're gonna see more and more of them as privacy laws start to restrict marketers more and more. I think we're just gonna start seeing those all over the place, even with our AI too.
So let's talk a little bit about the impact, why you should care, and then we'll talk in some generalities because again, we're not lawyers, and we do have a more specific article linked down below with point-by-point action items, but I don't want to bore you by reading that, and it changes, and we're still not lawyers, right? So just to reiterate that. So what's kind of the fallout, what's the intent here, and then what's the fallout? So I'll start with the intent, and you can talk a little bit about the fallout. How's that sound?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the intent was the EU, which I think fights for consumer advocacy and consumer transparency and consumer rights more than probably any other government institution in the world. Sometimes they don't always get it right, but their intent here was to give basically consumers control over how their data is consumed, shared, processed, and used to target them for tracking ad-based services, basically data migration across areas you didn't intend, right? To give you some control over that, because just because you went to go look at a recipe on how to make your favorite cornbread doesn't mean that some other site you've never been to should know everything about anything you've ever done in your entire life. That was kind of the general overarching intent. And so they wrote a law that said, not only do you have to respect that for traffic that's in the European Union, but the sticking point, which I think is a segue for you, is no matter where geographically that European Union resident is currently accessing your information, you must still adhere to GDPR. So, David, what does that mean in practical terms?
So, in practical terms, when I hear GDPR, and if I know that I'm running a newsletter or I have an email list or even a business where I have European Union customers joining that email list, I know that I have to follow those privacy laws, or I could get seriously fined. And I know people don't really seem to notice this stuff. They leave their terms and conditions blank. They leave their privacy policies blank. But this is the sort of hand of God hammer to the head that would ruin an entire month for you, because the fines can be pretty stiff. So what this means is if I know that I am selling a newsletter not selling a newsletter, but if people are joining a newsletter who live inside of the European Union, that means that I cannot reach out to these people if they are not on the newsletter. That means if they unsubscribe and or request for their data to be deleted, I have to follow it, and I cannot reach out to them again or just add them to the list again simply because they were a customer in the past. I can't just scrape data from European businesses and say, okay, we got 100,000 European contacts. I'm just going to add them into my newsletter and they can unsubscribe if they want. The US is a little more lenient about that. European Union, not so much. So really, when I think about European Union privacy laws, I like to say the US is on an opt-out basis. The EU is on an opt-in basis. So in America, you could send to whoever you want as long as you give them a way out. European Union, just don't even run that risk, right? Just make sure that they opt in first and you are very, very clear on your landing page or whatever sign-up flow you have. Be very clear that they will receive email marketing from you and that they can unsubscribe anytime they like.
Yeah, the funny thing is about the US, a lot of people don't realize, is that the state of California actually passed sort of similar legislation forever and a day ago, but it's so rarely enforced that it might as well not even exist. It's kind of the funny bottom
Yep.
line. And, other countries have also passed intermediate legislation too. I know we're here to talk about GDPR, but you have the Canadian anti-spam law for Castle, and other
Hmm.
countries have very similar legislation because basically people want to stop getting spammed. The idea of GDPR was to take it one step further, which gives you not only the right to not be spammed, but the right to control how your data is collected and stored. So if
Yeah.
someone requests deletion, that doesn't just mean that you have to unsubscribe them. It means you have to completely cleanse the data from any record that you have so that you can't also use it in things like Facebook custom audiences or any other sort of retargeting structure, method, tracking technology available today or invented in the future. Is that
Hmm.
you basically have to completely sanitize your records that that person ever even existed, which is a very much a nuclear level compared to please don't spam me anymore.
Yeah. Right. In your time, Travis, because I know for me, I haven't seen anybody in my network, and for me, knock on wood, I've never gotten slammed with any GDPR problems. I haven't seen anybody in my network get slammed with this. Have you?
Directly, no, but I have tracked the actual court cases that have come as a result of GDPR. And
Hmm.
here's kind of my industry, active industry person's point of view, which is that GDPR seems to be used as a bludgeon to enforce against bigger companies historically, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Apples of the world. And ironically, the European Union government actually just recently got in trouble for not adhering to their own GDPR legislation.
Oh,
So,
shocker. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
I think the intent was well-meaning, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it is so tedious, and the fallout, should they choose to enforce it, is so onerous that it really is only worth pursuing for a big company, right? Because like if they come after a newsletter, let's say with a couple 100,000 subscribers, and they deem that 20,000 of those subscribers weren't collected through proper GDPR means, the fines alone would completely just bankrupt most small businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be like, well, forget it. Like, wash my hands, done with this, right? So let's talk about some sort of best practice ways that you can arm yourself to be better prepared for this. Again, we're not lawyers, so this isn't the exhaustive, definitive checklist. There's a more definitive checklist down below, but even then, make sure that you always check with legal counsel. But if you do a lot of the legwork ahead of time, your legal counsel ends up being a lot less expensive than if you go to them raw. The componentry that you're going to need there is you're going to need the ability to gain consent from users even when they visit, not just when they opt in. So, hey, if you have any kind of cookie tracking at all, which you likely do because the modern web does not work right, really, without cookies, without some kind of session data to properly serve and cache and do things. So, even if you're running what you think is the most streamlined thing possible and you don't have ads, you don't have lead collection, which if you don't have those two things, I'm not sure what you're doing online, but even if you don't have those things, you probably still have some sort of cookie based functionality of your site that relies on cookies. Thankfully, most of the web is run on WordPress. And when GDPR rolled out, there's lots of WordPress plugins out there. I'm not even going to name the specific ones because there's tons. But and even ones that aren't related to cookies have often added cookie-related management features onto it. Some SEO plugins have added it. Some general caching, speed enforcement, plugins have added it. So you likely either already have a plugin installed that you can enable this feature, or you can go find one from the bajillion options in the WordPress marketplace or any of the other CRMs you might be using, or CMSs rather. And so the goal here is to show a pop-up and give the user an option. And usually it's either two options or three options. If it's two options, it's either an all or nothing kind of approach. Hey, do you want the website to work and allow us to track you, or do you want to break the website? That's the most basic of forms. And then more sophisticated sites will often give you three choices, which is break the website, only use enough cookies to make the site work, or give me the full experience, which may also come with some tracking capability. This is so annoying to so many users that there are many even Chrome extensions that say auto accept every cookie pop-up I ever see, please. Because I just want it to work and I don't want to see this stupid pop-up ever again. This is what
Yep.
I mean by the web has sort of gotten worse, even though it's from a well-meaning, well-intended piece of legislation. You want to talk
Right.
about a little bit of the privacy and deletion request stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So this means as a sender, that means if you do get a request from somebody to say, delete my data, purge me from your systems, usually it's from like a really angry person, and I wouldn't even get into an argument. Just comply, remove them, and if you can, like if they say delete my data, delete their data, and then prevent them from joining the email list again with that email address. So have some type of suppression list mechanism in place. Some email service providers have it. From what I've seen, most don't, unfortunately. But add them to a suppression list, block them from putting in that email address into your system, because if they do, then that's a problem, and that's your fault, not their fault. So you want to make sure you delete their data. I mean, and I'm not a lawyer, so I could be wrong. And some lawyers might say like, no, David, it's cool if they rejoin. Guess what? I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not taking that risk, washing my hands of it. I will let that lead go because it's not worth the insane fine if the European Union decides to track me down, right? So that's one thing. Number two, I would just make it really, really blatantly obvious on the sign up page that they are going to be receiving marketing emails, and that they have to consent to it. If it's the European Union, that means you gotta have like that little checkbox that's like, yes, I consent to email marketing and stuff like that. If you just have them put in their email address and then you just start sending them emails, that's not good enough for the European Union. USA, sure, but that's another episode. But European Union, you got to make sure they know that they are going to be receiving marketing emails from you, and they have to willingly accept that. Okay, so that's something that I would do, and that's why I don't run newsletters in the European Union. I'm not too interested in dealing with that. But yeah, man, that's really it. It's really down to, for me, the SOPs in place come down to making sure that the user knows that they're getting an email and that they can leave anytime they want. And this goes without saying, but I gotta say it. If somebody asks to unsubscribe, you unsubscribe them like right away. And I know, and you're almost, we're like, duh. Like, who wouldn't do that? You'd be so surprised how many times I've clicked an unsubscribe link in some emails and I'm still getting emails from that person. European Union, they take that much more seriously than the can spam laws in the US. So, point number 3, just unsubscribe people that ask to be unsubscribed, like be a good human. I can't believe I have to say it, but there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good recap. The unfortunate kind of other side effect is if you do all the things that you're asked to do for GDPR, the net result is it's going to lower your conversion rates on your forms. It's going to make getting leads more expensive and harder. And you now have the burden as a business to handle those inbound requests, basically like a support team, so that you can manually not only unsubscribe, but make sure you have a process in place to fully purge them from your system. So it's a worthwhile thing to chase just because of the stick, not the carrot. You're afraid of the stick, so you want to make sure you avoid it. But
Right.
At the end of the day, I would say that the overall risk factor, again, not a lawyer, but the overall risk factor for most people that are listening to something like this is fairly low because you're not Facebook, you're not Google, you're not Apple. So that's a good sign. I'm hopeful as an email marketer in general, who is very pro consumer control, consumer choice. I hope that this gets reworked because I think that most people can probably agree that while GDPR was well intended, its actual result in real life is not really for the betterment of the web experience. So I'm really, really hopeful that the EU will reconsider. We apparently here in America are in the age of deregulating everything. So we're probably not at risk of something like this coming to the US, at least for now, under the current setup. So, take that as you will. Hope that it gets reworked. But in the meantime, do the minimum sort of CYA and make sure that you get that little pop-up that says, I consent, and make sure you have some form of process in place to fully purge someone from your system should they request it, because it's just not worth the risk. So if you want to learn more, you want to read the actual detail point by point, check out the blog post down below. If you have any questions or comments, definitely drop them below this video. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to check out an email tool that does give you quite a bit of control and suppression lists, that's Campaign Refinery. We don't specialize in the EU area, but we definitely have things to give you as the sender lots of control over your data, and we have a lot of data integrity in place. And David, if someone is looking to build and scale and sell their newsletter, where should they go?
They should go to wealthyinbox.news, where I will not talk about GDPR because I'm not a lawyer, and it's also I like to build newsletters in America. So uh if you want to learn more about GDPR, you can check out the Campaign Refinery article there. There's plenty of detail.
Yeah, but if you want to hurry up and scale up and exit your newsletter before it becomes a pain in your butt for GDPR, David's your dude.
Then there you go. There you go. Then go to wealthyinbox.news. You can take a look at what I'm doing. I update it very semi regularly. So it's just a story of what's going on.
Cool. All right. Well, till next time, we'll talk to you guys soon.